So I have had it happen before where I've done the whole interview and I didn't hit the second click on record.
Yeah.
So we had to do it again. That's an awkward kind of, on the plus side, we were all familiar with the questions by that point. So there's that. So I'm trying to do more interviews. I got a very aggressive content schedule for this month. So
So how much content do you think you create in the course of a week or a month?
I probably average 3 or 4 videos. It's been a little lower for the past few weeks just because I'm moving and we're still cleaning the old place. So like all of our weekends, like every weekend, we're going down to the old place to paint a wall or to regrout the tub, or we've got a buyer, but should that fall through, it has to go on the market anyway. So just continuing to do that is a huge time sink.
Right.
But normally I think I'm up to about 950 videos, something like that.
Woo.
Total. Now, I mean, there was a 6-month period where I did several years ago now where I did nothing, but
Right.
it's a lot. I try to do, there's the reason I do as many live streams and unboxings as I do is they're pretty low impact. The average live stream it's been taking longer lately because I've been doing research, but usually it's like 30 to 60 minutes of prep time for the 2-hour live stream. Yeah. Sometimes an hour and a half. But like a 2 hours of scripted video might take me 20 hours to make, right? So, which probably not one video, but like if I spent 15, 20 hours on like a 5-minute video in the past. So that makes me more dependent on live content, which, I guess I'm good at. I don't know.
No, you are. And I've been there, right? I when I first started doing a podcast, I produced a lot of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd do it in segments and insert songs and pull out funny lines and all that stuff. And it was interesting for a while, but then it just becomes drudgery, right?
Yeah.
And so I've completely changed my view on that. And that's your live stream, it forces the same discipline on you, right? Because you produced it, you're done, and it's published. And I'm going to start doing that with podcasts because I can't do the interviews I want to do and do them in that produced manner and then maintain the energy and interest in doing, one or two a week.
And there's so much that's dependent on that energy level, right? I mean, that really shows through to the audience, I think. I drink a lot of coffee, so in preparation for these things sometimes.
Yeah, there are other stimulants too, right?
Well, there are, but most of them are illegal here in Ohio. So, but I mean, it's a lot. I with the whole. I realized a couple of weeks ago, it was like, it's got to be 15 years that I've been doing this. And I'm like, I got to do something, right? So, I'm being super cagey about exactly what I'm doing, other than that there'll be extra videos and some giveaway stuff, which we've already started to do. But, getting a video out a month, which I have done, or I should say a video out a day for a month, man, that's tough. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And that was more or less, I had something structured where I had like a playthrough and I would stagger the episodes out so that one would release every couple of days. So, but I think my maximum uploaded like 45 videos in a month one time, which is absolutely bananas.
Right.
So that was when I was doing video game content though, because I would play for 3 hours and I would get 5 episodes out of it. And then I would just have one release every day, but they'd all upload at the same time. So,
right.
I haven't gotten there lately, but
it's good. There's some nice benefits, right? Your stature in the community increases a little bit, and
yours sometimes a little weird.
Yours couldn't increase more, but mine increased a little bit. And then people ask you, right, what you think about stuff, and
that happens a lot.
It allows you to be a thought leader, and it's community building, which is the part I love, right? Just pulling people together for a common interest.
Yeah. And I have, I occasionally bitch about, the challenge. Well, yeah, but sort of, the challenging viewers. Right.
Yeah.
And that really doesn't happen very much to me. I mean, I think I counted, somebody mentioned, hey, Seth Skorkowski, who runs he's got like 100,000 viewers. It's an RPG channel. He's got like 100,000 viewers, and he's got, like hundreds of blocked people. I've got like 10.
Yeah.
So, and I've had the YouTube channel for 12 years. So, that's not bad. We really don't. There's the sore thumbs really stick out, right?
Can I give you a little bit of intro as well?
Sure.
So back here,
Yes.
Clash of Giants, Civil War is what I will be punching this evening.
Awesome. Fantastic.
And
fantastic. What would be even better? I don't want to jinx you or anything, but is that Clash of Giants Civil War?
Yeah, this is Bull Run right here.
Is that that's Ted Racer design, as I recall?
Ted Racer activation, right? Sort of initiative. And very much looking forward to it. As a matter of fact, Pushing Cardboard and I will be at the GMT weekend at the warehouse, and I think we're scheduled to play this on Friday. So,
well, cool. When is that?
It is not this weekend, but the following weekend.
Okay, so it's coming right up, and that's the one that's in California at the actual warehouse.
Yes, highly recommended if you've never done it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a drive for me, unfortunately.
Well, airplanes, right? Helicopters, spacecraft.
That's true.
Let's see.
Large mole machine would be awesome to take there.
13 through 16
there's rather a lot of stuff coming up in the fall. That's coming up, and something else is coming, and San Diego Historical Games
November. We'd love to have you in November too in San Diego.
Yeah, that ain't happening. I didn't think I was going to get to do any other conventions until at least spring, and it's looking like Compass Expo is going to work out for me. So that's a fun experience. It's a fun con. John runs a great con, and everybody that's there seems to have a lot of fun, and it's a good opportunity to meet some designers and stuff that are working on things and all that jazz. So I actually got content out of it last year, which wasn't the case the first time I went. So we got a guy that's driving though. So when we, as you know, we moved. So we're just west of Akron now.
Okay.
And the guy that goes every year lives in Medina. It's like 20 minutes from here. So that turned 2 hours to meet up with him to drive 10 hours to Connecticut into he drives 20 minutes, picks me up, and we drive to Connecticut. That's much more attractive. To me, I got stuck in a fucking snowstorm on the way home one year. I picked my car up in Medina, start driving back down to Columbus, and we get this huge blizzard. It took me 5 hours to get to Columbus. It sucked. It was terrible.
You will never encounter a snowstorm here in San Diego.
That's I have heard. Well, if we do, we got big problems.
We got bigger problems than Wargaming.
Yeah, bigger problems than weekend at the warehouse.
Hey, let me ask you. I know you have a bunch of questions for me, but since I'm set up here to clip counters and I'm excited about it, I had some questions process-wise. I wanted to make sure that I was doing it in a manner that's consistent with your style. And so a bunch of little questions came up. First of all, do you use this advanced device?
Okay, so I've got two. Hold on.
Okay.
I have two of them. I have 5 counter clippers. So this is the one that broke. With somebody made me a oak handle, which will never break.
Right.
This is the new one that I bought when my 2.5 millimeter got confiscated by the TSA. And I put dice in there, and it turned out it was not clipping deep enough, so I actually had to take the belt grinder to the dice to wear them down a little bit. So we're nothing if not all about half-assed engineering here at Ardwulf's Lair.
Right.
But what this does is it prevents the thing from closing all the way. There's I can't really easily show it without taking this apart, but there's a part in here right under this piece that bears the entire mechanical load of the whole device. So, and it's under a lot of extra pressure if you press down when it's maximally depressed, because there's the 100% of the power that you're putting into it is going into that piece. So the key is to not let it close quite all the way. You obviously want to let it close far enough to clip the whole counter, This actually probably needs a little more sanding. I don't use this very often because I use the regular ones. These things, which are a little trickier, but they're also indestructible. So I'll settle for indestructible. This is that's not the one that I got here, but one of these got confiscated by the TSA, stuck in a bag somewhere. I get it back like 7 weeks later. The bag looks like it's been through Afghanistan, and the clipper works great.
Yeah, but air flight's safer for it, right?
Yeah,
you don't have that thing around.
Yeah. So don't try and take it into and your carry-on luggage, right? I guess take away from that.
Yeah, well, lots of questions about why in the world it was in your carry-on to start with, but
I was going to Compass Expo. I needed it. I was going to clip counters there.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's become a part of your brand, so it makes perfect sense.
Right. Exactly. I was going to do like a live thing there of me, not a 2-hour show, but a live thing there of me clipping counters. And boy, that didn't happen. Thanks, TSA. So if I'm squirming a lot, it's because my back is stiff. It's not really my back right now. It's more my hips. But
and so you shouldn't use your hips when you're doing this. I don't believe you're not doing it right.
Oh no, I'm aware. Well, so I'll settle for it's sciatic nerve. So the hips, my hips are just achy at this point. My back feels good today. My back is like at 97.5% today.
Good.
So that's good.
Progress.
It flared up again last week. Pretty bad. Not as bad as last time, but it flared up pretty bad, and I was hobbling around for a couple of days.
So when you hold it, do you use one hand? Do you sit it on a flat surface? I've noticed that I can't hear it click when you're doing it.
Okay, so this is clickier than the pliers style. So sometimes these will get squeaky, which is because the parts are all metal, so you want to have them lubricate it. This will squeak because the parts are plastic sometimes, but there's a really audible click, click, click when you clip. I just hold it. And the way I do it, I'm not very fast at this anymore. You get pretty fast at it pretty easily. So I just clip, rotate the piece with my thumb, and sometimes it doesn't fall off. Clip, clip.
Gotcha.
Clip. And it, you get pretty fast with it. It took me quite a while. The speed comes more naturally with the deluxe than with the standard. I found, because you got to go a little slower with the standard to avoid the swish clips. Right. I haven't swish clipped. I've probably swish clipped 2 of the last 10,000 counters. I really just don't do it anymore. And I've got every size. I've got 2, 2.5, 3. I hardly ever use the 3, but I bought it anyway because why not?
You can feel that swish clip.
Yes, I think you can.
And I can stop myself with that before I do it. I prefer this because this you can kind of blindly let it rotate in there. Yes. Right? It's just so simple.
Yeah.
But we were at Consim World and we were playing somebody's Angola. And we made the mistake of putting it on Twitter, right? And of course, everybody was aghast because it wasn't clipped. So
Angola, I'm not sure I'd get all bunched up about that.
Well, as you can imagine, people on Twitter got bunched up, all right? And people, what does that mean? 1, 2 people, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So someone had one of those clippers, and we started clipping them right as we played, right? We just sort of went around the table and did it. But one guy had never experienced, I won't tell you who it was, but it might have been Sobi Yosef. And he had never experienced that particular clipper. And so half of the ones he did, decimated the counter.
If you don't know, if you got to get used to it, practice on a few blank counters. I got the hang of it pretty fast, but man, you'll maul rectangular counters.
Not for amateurs.
Yeah. So there is a little bit higher skill level involved. But I don't even look anymore. It's all feel. If I feel that I could feel if it's biting too hard, and I just back off, rotate to the next corner, and come back to that corner. And almost every time it will clip correctly on the second time. And the slight depression that I made in the counter the first time is invisible. So
I'm not sure that I can do this and talk at the same time, right? That's the other thing that I'm kind of impressed.
I'd clip for you if I was there. But
it would be my pleasure.
Yeah. I could totally clip. I do clip faster when I'm not talking though. I can tell you that. I can tear through probably a counter sheet and a half-inch counters in an hour if I'm just like watching TV.
Right.
But I have found that because I'm clipping on the show, I clip off the show less. So, and I'm going to save this good game for the counter clipping show. thus the Lava Tie game that I've been clipping for the last month. So
that's brutal. Now, what do you do with the remnants, with the clip, with the
little corners?
Yeah.
So I was actually saving them in a mason jar, and my wife saw that, and she's like, "Are those the little corners of the cardboard pieces that you clip off?" And I said, "Yes. This entire mason jar is filled with counter clippings." She said, "You're a fucking psychopath.
Yeah.
Throw those away."
Yeah.
So I threw
she's
them away.
right. That's not.
She's totally right. That's just weird. There's no. I can construct some fantasy scenario, but I'm going to make a paper mache dice tower out of clipped corners. A complete bullshit project. but come on, seriously.
Carl Kreider has a jar of his, right?
Yeah,
and it's like fingernail clippings or something. I don't get it. It's just kind of gross, right? Yeah. And it reminds me. I don't know I don't know if you've been around long enough to have experienced punch card programming.
No, not really. No.
Yeah. So when I was in college, that's
like my mother-in-law's era.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm your mother-in-law's age, but it was right. When I entered college, it was the end of that. And, there were always those nubs that were remnants of the punched cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a group of people, I don't know who or what they were. They just lived in those compilation rooms, right? Where you were, collating and running those things through, and you were creating and programming. They were there all the time, every time I was there. And someone told me that group makes a soup out of those that's delicious. So
I find that slightly difficult to believe.
Somebody told me. That's all I can tell you. And it was there in the great state of Ohio. It was at the Ohio State University.
There's a
computer
shock.
Lab. Yeah.
That's a shock. Let me tell you. I don't know. But I mean, I could get. I'm just not saving them anymore. They just go. Good. So I clip. I've got a box, like a box lid. I can't find it since I moved. So I mean, they pile up, but I toss them in the garbage.
Are you sure you toss them, or you just say that so that your wife and I don't tease you anymore?
No, I'm tossing them. She's not. What am I going to hide the counter clippings from her? Don't look in that drawer.
I don't know. Maybe. Do any sort of repetitive stress injuries that you get from this?
I've got a ganglion cysts in both wrists, but those are from working in the butcher shop years ago, and they do not bother me now. I mean, as you get older, your hands start to ache more. But I'm not blaming this for that. So,
okay, all right.
I mean, I'm gonna guarantee I've clipped at least 250,000 counters. So if I haven't gotten repetitive motion injury by now, it ain't happening.
Right.
So, and it helps me maintain my Popeye forearms too. So,
you got some big old forearms. I saw a picture with you and the Player Said guys.
Yes.
And your arms were crossed, and I was thinking, good Lord, that's forearms.
That predates the counter clipping habit, I'm afraid. But I could totally tell people, it's from clipping counters all the time. So I have such muscular forearms. So I'm not above building a little bit of mystique,
Yeah, no, a little bit of legend.
Yeah. And I'm like, maybe you had John Butterfield on recently, man. What the hell you want to talk to me for? You get John Butterfield.
I think it's diversity of opinion and diversity of interests, and I think it's all interesting personally. But
well, good, because I my mom tells me that I am in fact very interesting, and I should.
But the 15 minutes we just spent on clipping, I think, is important. That's important true. Content. The world wants to see that.
Is it so? As an aside, my mom in year 15 of me doing this stuff, my mom has finally discovered that yes, I am in fact on YouTube. So she makes a big thing of it where she gets my dad in the room and they put it on the TV and they watch it. And every time after it's over, sometimes during the show, I get a text? Why didn't you get a haircut before this show?
How about a shave?
You should shave. You look like a hobo.
That's so good.
So I'm like, who uses the word hobo anymore?
Right.
What am I, Steamboat Willie?
You knew what she meant, though, didn't you?
Yeah, I know exactly what she meant because she's been talking like that for the last 75 years. So
where do they live? What part of the country do they live in?
they're up by just west of Cleveland.
Okay, good.
So the whole family is part of the reason why we moved, is to be closer to family. My wife's family lives mostly in Akron, and my family lives mostly on the west side of Cleveland. So it's about 45 minutes to my folks and about 20 minutes to hers, maybe 15. So in the area we found is pretty nice. So I'm happy about that. We were kind of out in the woods. There's a lot of wildlife out here. But we're really like 8 minutes from like Fair Lawn. So it's you got to go to the grocery store or Lowe's or whatever. It's all right there.
But you got some privacy.
Yeah, it's nice.
I love it.
We're on an acre, 1.15 acres, which is about half old growth forest. So that's got its a little bit of a challenge that's developed since a tree has already come down in the forest since we moved in. So I got to get that dealt with, and my little toy chainsaw with the battery is not handling that thing. I'm like, nah, we're not this thing's like this big around. I can't cut that bitch down.
Well, there are grown-ups that do that for a living that would charge you a pittance to do it.
Yeah, I will be happy to have some burly men in flannel shirts come by and just take care of that for me in 10 minutes.
Right. And you can watch if you like to.
Right. I'll sit on the back porch with an iced tea and hey guys, how you doing? Thanks. Good job. I'll stand right there for a second. Oh,
terrible.
Yeah, terrible. So South China Sea then.
Yeah.
So it came out just a couple months ago, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's been out a few months. And by the way, no counters to clip.
No, they're all pre-rounded.
No counters.
No counters to clip.
No counters. Yeah, Gary, come on, man. You got to do some research before you.
There's no counters. I mean, how is this a war game?
It's little tiny bits of wood, and that's it.
I got a belt sander. I can round it. Those little tiny bits of wood.
You can.
I bet I can.
No, you can clip whatever you want. You could split them, an axe, whatever you wanted, right?
I experimented with that. You know, that super thick, whatever the hell it is that Hollandspiel and White Dog Games and everybody else that prints through Blue Panther uses.
Yes.
I experimented with clipping that stuff, and it is clippable. Totally not worth it, but it is in fact clippable.
Those corners are pretty clean though, right?
They are. There's center nibs though, but they're really small center nibs, so they don't really get caught on anything. And in any event, the hex density is not very low in any of those games, even those which feature a hex map. So
it's true. Yeah, it's not like you're playing OCS, right?
Right, exactly. I will just take my turn and move my 420 counters for the turn.
And by the way,
you're laughing like I'm joking.
I know exactly what you mean, and it's 420 counters in 60 hexes.
Yeah, it's a little more than that, but man, it's a lot. We're playing Third Winter right now, and it's taken so there's a fast team and a slow team. Okay. The fast team has 2 guys on it, both of whom are fairly fast. And the slow team has 1 guy on it who is fairly slow. And it takes the fast team about 3 hours to do our movement phase. And when it's the slow team's movement phase, we go home and come back next week.
Yeah.
And then we do the end of the movement phase in the air and the overruns and all that stuff. So, I mean, optimally, we'd have 4 people, but we don't have 4 people right now because circumstances and all that jazz.
Sure.
But
do you audit the other team's move? You just kind of does it not matter enough that you don't care, or?
I mean, we care. We'll sometimes, remind the other player, hey, make sure you pay your supply for that. I'm big on saying that because I have forgotten to pay the supply.
Yeah, I appreciate that as well.
And that will cock OCS up fairly badly if you do it a significant number of times. So, but not really. No, I mean, sometimes we'll say, hey, how are you tracing supply to these units, for example, or how are you throwing to these units? And they'll have, they'll show us, okay, there's an HQ here but generally speaking, if Well, I think nobody is beyond making the occasional honest mistake.
Sure.
If I'm playing with people that I have to watch like a hawk, then I need to find new people to play with.
Yeah, agreed.
So, and I'm just not, that's not really a concern with either of my gaming groups. None of us are like the competitive, you know, crazy people like show up at some ASL events where it's super competitive, super high stress, it's super quiet. The only noise you hear in the whole room, it's 100 people in it, is people flipping through that ridiculous rule book. So the sounds of pages flipping and sometimes people crying, sobbing to themselves in the corner.
A funny story for you. At least it's funny to me. My buddy Trevor Bender, who lives here in San Diego, plays a lot of competitive stuff. He likes to go to WBC and enjoys that competitive environment.
Mm-hmm.
So he's playing We the People with David Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, the one thing I remember about David was that we were playing, and he had to go to the restroom. David Doctor had to go to the restroom. So David went to the restroom, came back, and made Trevor reshuffle the cards who continue playing, which is awesome because Trevor's the most trustworthy guy I know in the world.
So if I didn't, I probably wouldn't do that even if I didn't know the person. But if I probably wouldn't get involved in a game that I felt was like, high stakes competition. I mean, it's not the Sting here. So I that's just not my style of play. I play for the historical interest and the historical discovery.
Yeah.
And sometimes for the social aspect, right? It's, which is always better if you're physically in the same place. And for sometimes, honestly, for like discovery of the game rules.
Yeah.
I like exploring game systems. I'd like to explore more game systems than I have. I think when I then start to think about, okay, what are the game systems I've really gotten to explore pretty thoroughly, that number is depressingly low.
Yeah.
Because I play so many different things.
Yeah. I agree. I like that too. And I, unfortunately, I spend most of my time trying to find games that I haven't played, like this game in particular, with Ted. I bought it secondhand recently. And just because I wanted to see Ted's treatment of kind of low counter density Gettysburg and the activation system.
What's the other battle in that one?
Bull Run. I think I'm trying to remember. It's the first or the second Bull Run.
Okay. The second one is the more gamed one, I think.
Because it's a little bit more even, right?
Yeah. The first Bull Run, I'm aware of relatively few game treatments of that, actually. 3 Days of Manassas handles it. It's handled in Red Badge of Courage by GMT, but both of those also include second Bull Run. And then the only other like really in-depth treatment of it I can think of is All Green Alike, which is part of Stonewall Jackson's Way 2. But that's a campaign level game, right? Where a pretty bad mismatch in the actual battle doesn't necessarily imply a mismatch at the operational level.
Yeah.
So that's Vicksburg's going to be the same way, I think. But I'm curious to see how they handle that siege too. So same with Petersburg, that's coming as well.
I have a question for you on Gettysburg games here in a minute. At Consim World, we messed around with the Most Fearful Sacrifice.
It's too bad that there's not more Gettysburg games. I mean, it's a really underserved topic.
Well,
I think.
Let's finish with the Bulge and then we'll go to Gettysburg. Right? But your point about exploring games is important, because that's the way I feel when I play an OCS game or a big SCS game, or SCS, not as complicated, but I kind of like the bigger monster SCS games. But I almost feel like it's not as competitive as much as cooperative, right? I'm almost, we're all talking about the next move and strategy and what to do on both sides. And, I enjoy that as much as I enjoy just trying to beat somebody over the head with something else. OCS. I almost prefer that.
I think that's true. It's certainly there's like a small amount of trash talk and a small amount of beat it. We want to confer that goes on at our OCS table, but we're pretty open about, I got, you're going to have to pull back here, or I'm going to have to pull back here, or, well, you really stuffed my offensive flat in the face, and that kind of thing. So there actually is, it's not cooperative as such, but it's kind of like an open narrative where you're kind of talking through the blow by blow of the battle as you play. We're doing a lot of that with BCS right now, actually, and in that case, a lot of it's us kind of talking through both the mechanics and the kind of thinking that you need to apply to be successful at it, because we're all new-ish at it. I've played it before, but not well. So and so we see a lot of that in our 3-person. There you go. That looks good. There you go. Are those 5/8" counters? They look like.
Yeah, they're a little less. So what would that be?
9/16 probably.
9/16. Yeah, I think they're 9/16.
Okay.
And they're pretty dirty. I don't know if you can see, but there's some nasty nubs on each corner.
Oh yeah. I mean, the recent, that game's several years old. The more recent GMT counters, the punch super clean. On that thick stuff, super clean, and to the point where they kind of fall out of the sheet sometimes. Right. I have had a couple of counter sheets in a couple of those games that have had die cutting issues, though. And I haven't complained about it, but and it's not every game. Like the new Julius Caesar doesn't have this problem. Musket and Pike doesn't have this problem, but my Death Valley did. Where there was like one blade in the die that was just a hair over, and then it's hard to see when you're looking at the sheet, but then when you're handling the counters, it's obvious that this one is thicker than the other one, which of course then leads to problems with picking them up, when you actually have them on the map, and those are totally tweezer games too.
Yeah absolutely.
Now I found that I dislike the large SCS games, actually. And I think a lot of it is because to some extent there's overlap with OCS topics, right? When I was playing Panzer Battles, I found myself thinking, this would be cooler if it was in OCS. Just because, I have not super high, but pretty high familiarity with it, and I'm comfortable with it. And I was, it just didn't feel as full to me as the same thing. Same thing hit me with Day of Days. I felt like that I think that's got more problems than just that. I think there's a I'll call it a bloat issue in the early landing phases, where the way the landings and the airdrops work, you end up with these enormous overstacks, and it just feels super clunky and is physically super clumsy. And I don't really like that. I think there's scenarios you can just not pick the landing day scenarios and avoid that problem. But I also found it interesting that game is the only game in the series that Dean didn't draw the map for.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Nicholas Scooby map. And sorry, Nico, if you're watching, but I love every other map that Nico has made that I have seen has been beautiful. I hate that map. I think it's unattractive. I think it's got contrast issues. And I think it's got it doesn't really have contrast issues against the counters, because the counters are all pretty standard SCS counters on the standard SCS color palette, but the map's not. It's like a completely different color palette, and the counters tend to get kind of lost in the soup. There's also like multiple types of bocage. I think there's a light bocage and a heavy bocage, and I think it's hard to tell the difference. I did not like it. Did not like it. The one that the jury's still out on, among the the two, I guess, that the jury's still out on is It Never Snows, which is Market Garden, and the newish North Africa game, which I just don't have.
So I've played at Consim World one year. I played It Never Snows 4 times, and just enjoyed the hell out of that. And I think that was the one place I thought, when I say big games, I'm really talking about It Never Snows.
Okay.
And I think it just shines in that monster environment and the ability to just play back and forth and not have to worry about it.
So there's a big difference between situationally and the game skill factors into this too. Between It Never Snows and something like Panzer Battles, where in Panzer Battles you have a line It Never snows is really kind of in much the same way that the historical battle happened. It's a kind of a lot of smaller engagements
Right.
that individually look a lot more like something like SES Bastogne, which is a great game,
Mhm.
and which I enjoyed tremendously, and which is, I at some wasn't really expensive, but it was kind of a hassle to run a copy of that down, but I managed to do it.
Right.
So I do find it believable that Market Garden would work better than something like D-Day, where you've got like this absurdly overstacked lodgement that you have to break out of over the course of the week of the campaign or 10 days of the campaign that the game covers. Um, and the other one that I like a lot, which is, it's not super small, but it's not big, is the Mighty Endeavor. I think
Yeah.
I did some video on that several years ago, and I sure came off in that video like I didn't like it very much. I don't know that I said that, but then having played it then and kind of thought about it and kind of thought through the logic and what it's trying to do, I really think that's a very strong game.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't played BCS. OCS is a little too much supply for me. But you got to have something, right? Whether it's supply
Yeah.
or combined arms or whatever to
Yeah.
make the game a little more than just Battle of the Bulge 72 or whatever.
I find that, and this is one of the attractive features of OCS, but OCS is just one way to do this. I find that there needs to be some kind of throttle, right,
Yeah.
on me just not attacking everywhere, right,
Yeah.
where everywhere where I think I can get a favorable results, right. There has to be some kind of command or supply or logistics restrictions that prevent me from just steering all my stuff to one place and just blowing through there and just some of the old SPI, like the East Front Quad, was kind of like that, where you would just attack up and down the line as many in as many hexes as you could get a decent attack on.
Unconstrained. Yeah.
Yeah. And I in an operational game especially, I absolutely demand that as a consumer. I mean, not that I say that I won't play something that doesn't have it, but the chances of me liking it at the end of the day are much, much, much lower. The cool thing about BCS is it takes that sort of supply accountancy that OCS is based on, right? We have and it just turns it into a trace puzzle. But yet it includes all of the things of, hey, I don't have enough supply because my supply supply route got disrupted, and therefore the unit will tend to be less effective. It's a random roll, so you could just get full activations and a double activation, but maybe you won't. And like a modifier of +1 or +2 is very significant on a 2d6 roll, so that can make a big, just having your trains jumped, so you lose that +1 and you get an additional -1 because your trains are ghosted, is a big difference on a 2d6 roll, right? Chances are real good that you're not going to get that full activation, that you are in fact going to get a half activation or partial activation, and you have a much bigger chance statistically of getting no activation. I mean, that's even out without all the other factors. So a lot of the sort of questions that OCS asks are also answered by BCS without necessarily having all the busy work of managing supply. Now, recent OCS designs, and some of the ones in the pipeline do this too, have done a little more to abstract the supply system such that you have to worry less about driving the supply from point to point on the map. I'm not under an NDA or anything, so I can talk about this. It's been like 2 years since I participated in the playtest of the OCS Normandy game. But one of the things that the designer wanted to do was to avoid you having to physically run the trucks for the Red Ball Express, where you're spending 15 minutes running 25 truck points of supply so you could transport, your 50 SP to the front back and forth, which would be absurd, right? No, nobody wants to do that. So they created a different supply mechanism where you just trace a supply path and you make a roll and you put this many supply on the Army HQ, right? So there have been some concessions made on the OCS side for supply trace supply accountancy specifically.
Yeah, I think I think about that campaign for North Africa, right? That there was so much detail in that, and some people confuse detail with, I don't know what it is, accuracy or simulation, or and just because it's in there doesn't mean that it's a better simulation or even a better game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Than not, and if it becomes cumbersome for your taste, then it certainly isn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy one for
It's
sure. So,
interesting that you mentioned that, because the last
Confederate counters clipped for
look at
Bullrun
all
right
this
now.
progress. I mean, what is there,
Yeah.
like 100 counters total in that game, or what?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. And I'm
So
3/4 of the way done.
the
With your moral support, of course.
well, I'm glad to have contributed to this effort. The last interview I did was actually with some guys from the Center for Naval Analysis, and I talked to them about professional war games, and that's one of the points that they made is like, hey, you've got, compared to commercial war games, especially, there may be an enormous amount of data and dynamics that have to be analyzed and distilled down into something that you can teach Senator, Joe Bob how to do in half an hour, right?
Right.
So even the we look at rule. I mean, I don't know about you. I look at an 8-page rule book and said, this was a game for children. Aha.
Right. Right.
And yeah, I'm somewhat kidding, but right. But I'm gonna like mentally classify that as a simple war game,
Yeah.
and that would be considered totally overkill for like the professional wargaming community, which also happens to be trying to put together a much more complex. Whether it's a simulation or not is another question. Sometimes these things are done for just instructional value, but they're synthesizing a lot more factors than most commercial war games are going to try to. I think Campaign for North Africa stands as kind of a unique artifact in wargaming history, right? Richard Berg in his later years, as far as I could tell, kind of insisted that he had done it as a kind of satire of the exact phenomenon that everybody criticizes Campaign for North Africa for, and I don't know that I buy that, but I don't know that I'll say it'd be out of character for Richard Berg to do that either.
Right.
But at the same time, with the modern tools that we have like Facile and Excel, I suspect that you could play that much more easily than you could back in 1979, where you had to keep track of everything on paper.
Right. Right. And then and then there's all these Gary Grigsby games and things that are on.
Ooh, those are fiddly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's there could be an immense amount of detail underlying that, but we can all play it because the computer does the work. Is it better or more accurate? Who knows?
Yeah, I'd like the computer to do a little more of the work in the most recent Gary Grigsby products. To be completely honest about it, I found the air system in War in the West to be pretty impenetrable. And it's like it's the War in the West, right? It's right. July of 43 to May of 1945 in Western Europe. So boy, the air is important, right? Yeah. But you could tell the computer to just deal with it, but it doesn't feel like it does a satisfying job of doing that. So
interesting.
So at least in that respect, but I mean, there is a lot of stuff in there. I mean, that game's tracking. I'm saying War in the East, right, which is what I'm most familiar with. The first one, it's tracking like individual assets assigned to a regiment. So you can reassign those assets. You could say, take these anti-tank guns and send it to this other regiment, and that's all allegedly part of the simulation. And like the really super hardcore players like basically completely rebuild the entire order of battle before they start playing. It's like, no, these half tracks have to go to this Panzer division instead. It's like,
yeah, that's horrifying, right? Yeah. I mean that level, if it's necessary, it's horrifying. I would never, I just wouldn't spend that amount of time.
Yeah, that's a little much even for me. I think that's below the level, below the level of the simulation at that point.
Right. Right.
On the other hand, we also tell people that that's what we want the computer war game to do, right? Is to take advantage of the data that we have, and be able to kind of do all that in the background, and you just play it, and it's completely transparent. I
Mhm.
mean, we tell ourselves that's a good idea anyway.
Right. Right. No doubt. No doubt. But yeah, playability is important. I was having this discussion with Volko a couple of years ago. We were he and I were talking to someone that was a professional war gamer. So a real professional, right?
Mhm.
Not the hobby. So
Right.
so and I brought up the issue that, as a hobbyist, it's important that people have fun playing our games.
Mhm.
And not everybody has fun, but the people that are the target, right?
No, I want it to be work.
But that can be fun for some people too, right? So, but Volko's response was that if you're running a professional war game, it's also important that the players are engaged and enjoy the process with you, or else it doesn't succeed. If they're in for 2 hours and then after that they check out because it's no fun, it's not interesting,
Mhm.
then the game's a failure.
Mhm. Mhm. I somehow missed this. I may have heard about it, but I didn't watch it. But NBC, I think it was NBC, did a thing about a thing that some think tank put on as a war game of China invading Taiwan. And there was a big, like 40 minutes, 30, 40-minute segment about
Yeah,
it. I would just watch that the other day, and it's exactly that. I mean, the people in that room are not hobby war gamers, right? They're
you're
like
not reading
defense
rules,
analysts. There was a congressperson, and I mean, I guarantee that your average congressperson is not going to sit down and play OCS.
right?
So, and it's something that, something that was mentioned was there were people from the wargaming hobby when that video came out. They were saying, why don't you just play Next War Taiwan? And I'm like, okay, so you're going to sit down with Congresswoman so and so from rural Missouri and teach her the the next war air rules over the
Yeah,
weekend, right? Is that
yeah,
right? Is that what you're proposing here, buddy? Good idea. I think that's going to go over real good. So, I mean,
right.
then what's the point if you're not engaged even at the professional level, right? At some
Yeah,
level, those folks are being paid to do it.
yeah,
We're telling ourselves we're doing this for fun. So, and I mean, honestly, you could tell when somebody just kind of checks out, right?
yeah,
I'm not talking about, hey, I'm not doing anything right now while I'm waiting for the other person to move. I'm going to fart on my phone. You could tell when the other person just kind of checks out.
yeah, yeah. No, you can tell by their actions. That's why when I do play tests, I want to be there for the play test, right? And so I generally don't, I'm not doing, day of days or anything. I'm not doing these monster games, but
I mean, your
but
games don't even have counters now.
no, they don't even have counters. They're,
Yeah.
this is sans counters.
Yeah. The next was it's not even going to have blocks. It's going to have one block
Not
for
even
the
a
sides.
box. Not even a
Yeah.
box. Let me send you the rules. But if you got uh, and I forgot what I was going to say, Gary. What happened to me? I'm
I
getting
don't know.
old.
Oh, tell me about it.
Just give me credit for a very thoughtful comment.
I'm
And
sure whatever it was going to be exceptionally wise and insightful.
I,
So,
I remember what I was going to say. I was when I do a play test of my games, I prefer to be there,
mhm,
including online, where we'll do a lot of testing online. But I want to be there and see it. I want to see the decisions and the questions and the confusion and the mistakes and everything, and you just don't get that in a report from somebody
mhm,
that does it, or even if they send you the vassal log, you still don't have that. But you can see the people check out, right? Especially in a
mhm,
game that's clunky and it it's not where you want it yet. At some point they go, oh,
mhm.
but it's
But,
good.
yeah, I mean, that's a thing that maybe online play can, depending on exactly how it's done, can maybe hide disengagement to some extent because you
Yeah.
don't necessarily expect the person to be constantly responding. Um, I think that like a play by email game is probably so much it's extra work that somebody that is not engaged will just stop responding. But if there's like a live session going on,
Right.
then I think somebody might just be quiet and
Yeah.
might have checked out, and maybe they're just not talking right now because they're eating a sandwich.
Right. That's right. Maybe
So
they need a nap. Who knows?
maybe I can. I mean, I could use a nap right about now. Let me tell you, I've been running. I got up at 7 this morning, made breakfast, went and put up all these lights in here. So hopefully my lighting's better. That'd be
It's
good.
10:48 your time, right?
It is 10:48 my time.
Your lighting's excellent.
Oh, good.
Have you what about those little circle lights that everybody uses on TikToks?
I just ordered one. So I put up those LED strip lights. So it's basically going all the way around the circumference of the room by the ceiling. And they're really cool for ambiance. I got like a little remote. I could change the color. I could turn. Oh, hold on. I'll show you. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah. So I got to turn the other lights in the room off. So the lighting is going to get bad.
It's Halloween.
But check this out now. It's all the light off the monitor too. Hold on. Let me close all these windows so the room's darker to get maximum effect off it.
I feel like there should be some house music in the background.
See the camera corrected for it. I could turn the lights red or blue or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Blue. This is the way that looked like that video I made the other week where I'm like, the video comes out. I sometimes I check the video to make sure that it turned out okay, but usually I don't because I've already checked it, right? All I did was hit render and then I upload the video and everything's blue in the video. I'm like, what the hell is this?
Outrageous.
Yeah. So it turned out it's an AMD driver problem. And it's not that I wasn't on the latest driver. I was on the latest driver. Right. AMD's drivers just suck. So, So this thing's going to be great for like general room ambiance, but I didn't feel like it was putting out enough light to make a big difference on the camera. So I ordered a ring light. It'll be here tomorrow, and I'll start experimenting with that.
Some people do the soundproofing too, but you don't need that. You sound great.
Oh, that's because I've already done all the soundproofing.
Have you already done it?
These are those acoustic tiles.
Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So you know what? One pack of those made a big difference by itself. I ended up putting up 3 packs, like 2.5 packs.
Right.
And they're packs of 15 1-foot tiles. And I covered basically every surface in the room that wasn't that's not concrete. Like, well, not the ceiling, but it made a big difference.
Yeah, it sounds great.
It was very echoey in here.
Do you remember your wife's response to you keeping those counter clippings? That would be my wife's response to me putting up acoustic tile.
Yeah.
She would be pissed.
They're not this room and right outside that door, that's my space. She's pretty much okay. She'll make suggestions, and she had a great suggestion for the shelving that's going to go up in there. We'll see if that happens. She's like, just put those strip lights up on behind the games on the shelves. And I'm like, ooh, yeah,
nice.
That's a great idea. I'm gonna do that. And the whole light kit costs like $25. So why not? I'll probably need 2 of them for that, but so what?
Right. Yeah. The challenge for lighting, and I wear glasses sometimes, right, is the glasses capture the.
Yeah, this is a problem. The problem is if I take them off, I can't see shit.
Yeah. Plus, you look better with them on. You look smarter.
Well, that's true. I do a lot of squinting. I look more like Clint Eastwood when I'm not wearing glasses. So, that's great. But yeah, there is a lot of glare. I don't know that there's much I can do about that. It might become obnoxious with the ring light if I got this giant ring light.
That's what I was saying. Yours is not a distraction now, but that ring light might just project a ring back in everybody's face.
Yeah. You could see it in a lot of videos where people are not wearing glasses, where you literally see the ring light reflected in their irises.
Yeah.
And that's a slightly weird effect unless you're making Tolkien videos, in which case it's totally appropriate.
Sauron.
Yeah. Or Galadriel, right?
Yeah. Oh, there you go. Have you been watching the new
I'm a huge Tolkien nerd. So I got pretty bent by the first episode, but I'm enjoying it enough to watch it the day it comes out, and I haven't missed one yet. So I haven't given up on it, and it's pretty uneven. I think some of the all the Galadriel stuff, I'm like, I don't know. But a lot of the other parts of the show are pretty good. They're doing a pretty good job, like establishing like mysteries for people to get invested in. They got to pay that. They got to pay that shit out. I was saying this on Twitter the other day. It can't be like Lost, where you keep just like throwing these twists in and nothing ever gets resolved. You can't do that. You got to have a resolution to some of this stuff.
Where are we going with this? Are we going with two? Are we going to have 2 seasons or 1 season of this thing?
Of the Rings of Power,
Yeah.
I think they're planning it for 5 seasons.
Holy cow!
So, I mean, if it's a bust, it's they may cancel it before that, but it seems to be doing reasonably well, and boy, there's a huge sunk cost factor going on there, right? Because Amazon's already spent like $1 billion on this thing, so they're pretty heavily invested in making it work. I feel like so I mean, a lot of shows, as we're all aware, a lot of shows have pretty weak first seasons as they set stuff up, and the writers kind of learn the dynamics of the actors and react to the chemistry between the actors and stuff like that. And then in second and third seasons, the show starts to mature and get a lot better. We've seen this in something like Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is universally considered to have a dog shit first season. Babylon 5 has a pretty shaky first season, as a lot of like blocks are put into place for people to trip over later on. So, I'm willing to continue watching it. There's parts of the show that I like actually like. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but there's a thing that happens in episode 6, the latest one. I think it's episode 6, and there's 8 episodes total, by the way. That is a beautiful piece of plotting. We knew it was going to happen. If you thought about what, you're familiar with the books, and you knew this was going to happen at some point, and it was just very well put together. I wish a lot of other things about the show were as equally well put together. They're not, but the costumes are a bit uneven. Some production design, all the visuals and all that's generally really good, but the costumes are a little uneven. Some of the costumes are really good. Some of the costumes look like they came out of Ohio Ren Fair. So, I mean, I've literally got shit in the closet upstairs that looks better than a couple of those costumes. So,
I wonder, I've been to a Texas Ren Fair. I wonder if Ohio Ren Fair is different than the Texas Ren Fair.
Probably not by much.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been to a Ren Fair in years. I think Ohio Ren might be still going. It's probably over by now. It runs late. Ohio Ren runs late in the season. So, but I'm sure it's over by now. I think. I don't know.
I'm not sure what over means. I mean, over may mean you're not invited in from the outside, but I think there are people that just live that all the time.
Yes, there are, but they don't stay at the same place all the time.
They rotate.
They'll rotate from fair to fair to fair. There's like a fair season that starts in about May and runs, and there'll be people who every at least weekend. Some people do this professionally. At least on the weekends, they'll just go to a different fair the following weekend. And usually they run for a few weeks, right? Depends. Sometimes they're just a weekend, but there's totally people that just do that, and sometimes professionally. I doubt they're, amongst the most affluent American citizens, but if they're happy doing, going from Ren Fair to Ren Fair and selling leather goods and stuff like that, good for them. And I know some of those folks.
What does affluent mean? Affluent means doing something you love.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not all about money, right? Yeah. The money's great, but if you,
it's not all about money and acoustic tiles, Gary.
Yes, exactly. I got like 8 more acoustic tiles. I'm not 100% sure what to do with them, because I don't think I can soundproof this room any better. So,
well, I have some ideas, but they're not PG, so I'm not going to.
I mean, I could ship them to you. That's not that big of an ask. So,
yeah, well, I appreciate
the self-adhesive ones too. Apparently, some people bought the ones where you got to just put that don't have adhesive, but you got to put double-sided tape on the back, and they fall off in a week. So,
or glue.
I don't know who bought those hillbilly acoustic tiles. Well, they're not the one. I got nothing but the finest acoustic tiles here. Bought directly from Amazon, the home of the finest acoustic tiles.
Hillbilly acoustics. Watch it, man. You're getting close to my people there.
I am in Ohio, right? So, they're closer to me than they are to you right now.
That's true. That's true. Very fun.
So, unfortunately, the timing was just not right for us to make the annual sausage festival here in Akron.
So there's a sausage fest in Akron.
There is an actual quote unquote Akron Sausage Festival. And I am told it is a truly delightful event.
I bet it is.
So
I bet somebody drinks some beer
next year.
I bet somebody drinks beer at the Sausage Fest.
I suspect you may be right about that.
Yeah.
I suspect a whole lot of things may go on at the Sausage Festival. But we're not going to. That's another thing we don't talk about on this show.
Of course.
We don't want to get demonetized.
I appreciate that. Yeah. We had in Columbus, there's a big German community. In Cincinnati, there's a big German community as well.
Yeah, but it's harder to get Geta in Columbus.
Yes.
Which is damn unfortunate.
So,
and you can get it online, so it's not like you can't get it, but or you can make it. There's recipes on YouTube for how to make your own Geta. So you've had Geta, right?
I have no idea what it is. I was just going along with you.
Okay. So Geta is a German American, sometimes described as a sausage, but it's not a sausage. And it's sometimes described as German, but it's not German. It's a German American thing that came up in northern Kentucky, southern Ohio. That is basically like scrapple. So it's offcuts of pork usually mixed in with some kind of grain filler. Unlike scrapple, typically it's like regular meat offcuts and not organ meat offcuts. If you got scrapple that doesn't have like liver in it, it's not real scrapple and probably isn't very good. Geta is delicious. It's absolutely delicious. I would eat it. It's very high in calories, but I would be happy to eat it like once a week if I could get it here. But even in Columbus, it was hard to get.
So it's German sausage that's neither German nor sausage.
Neither German nor sausage. It cannot be called sausage in America legally because it contains the grain filler. So,
do you worry about the sausage police in your community?
I'm not super duper concerned about the sausage police. No, I'm on very good terms with the sausage police. And occasionally, they might come by and check up on me, but everything's okay here in the land of sausage.
With your level of sausage disclosure is adequate.
Oh yeah. No, I got substantial sausage cred in the sausage community too. I'm not sure if
just given the sheer volume that you've ingested over time.
Yeah. Right? The YouTube censors are going to be so confused by this video.
The bots that listen in.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So I got banned from Twitter, by the way. This is a funny wargaming relevant story. So at one point the Ukraine-Russia conflict had heated up, and I posted what I thought would be funny. I didn't steal the graphic from anything. I literally made a black image and posted it on Twitter with the subtitle "Current location of the Russian Black Sea Fleet" is at the bottom. And Twitter banned me for revealing somebody's personal location. So Twitter banned me for doxing the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And I'm like, what? What?
Amazing.
I thought nothing of it. I'm like, clearly this was a real, because it was like, boom, you're banned. Get out of here.
I'm sure there's a very sophisticated arbiter that will hear your case.
Yeah, it's a robot.
It's funny.
So clearly it was an algorithm and not a live person.
Yes. Yeah.
YouTube actually does have live. So if you get like a copyright strike or it's not even a copyright strike, but you could get like a copyright claim on a video. My Dune video had a copyright claim on it. It's not a strike. It's not like a bad thing on your account. You just can't monetize it. YouTube monetizes it and keeps the money. That's how they work.
Yes.
But you can appeal those things, and they'll actually it might take some time, but they'll actually put a manual reviewer on it if necessary. So, sometimes that manual reviewer will be an untrained monkey, but so they're not going to get everything right, but they will actually put a person on it sometimes. But I expected that particular video to get claimed on because I have a ton of footage from the new movie. So.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm sure they prioritize too by either hit or potential hits, right?
Yeah. Well, my big 500 hits on that video is probably more than that, but very small potatoes in the YouTube movie review space. Okay. Right. And my one movie review.
How many views do you get on what are your highest viewed videos? What kind of numbers?
My highest viewed video is about 24,000 views.
Wow.
It is an EverQuest 2 video from the first couple years of the stream of the channel.
So you did a lot of role playing then.
I mean, that's what I started doing, right? Because I had the blog and I was blogging about MMORPGs, and I just did this random let's play EverQuest 2. And the second there's like 3 in the series. The third video did okay, but the first video, I don't know if went viral is the right word, but apparently I was like exceptionally entertaining and smooth on that video or something, because it shot up to like 20,000 views, right? And it's taken years for my wargaming content to get close to that, and I still haven't had anything that's overtaken it. The top videos that I've done, I think, are the Hunters playthrough, the Distant Plane rules walkthrough, and the 2 or 3 Paths of Glory tutorials. Those are all in the 17, 18, 20,000 type of range, and which is a lot, right, in our space.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot.
If I did more good content like that, I'd get more hits, right? So, but that specifically, when I talk about, I spent 30 hours on a 5-minute finished video. Those are the videos I'm talking about,
right?
Because I would spend 2 hours filming, end up with an hour and a half of footage, because you got to manipulate all the pieces, turn the camera on and off, adjust. It's a lot of extra stuff that you're not just pushing pieces around.
Right.
And then you got all these pieces of disjointed video. And I mean, I'm not a professional video editor, right? If I was a professional video editor or hired a professional video editor, they may be able to edit this bitch in like 20 minutes. I don't know. But it took me like another 25 hours to do it. It was a huge amount of work. And that's not counting the legwork that goes in up front, right? Because I script those videos. I've probably put 15 hours into the unreleased OCS tutorial video. And it's not even released, and it's recorded, it's written. I just have to make all the slides. It's a slideshow, and making the slides is a huge amount of work. Right. So, and then do all the editing, but in principle, the editing should be relatively straightforward because the recording is made. So, I just need to, basically illustrate the soundtrack.
I can't imagine how much time and recording and processing like Rodney from Watch It Played does.
That's a great question. I have no idea. There's folks. One factor, and I don't know if Rodney or Ed from Heavy Cardboard, for example, have like multiple people involved in the channel, and like doing the work, and maybe somebody's doing the editing, and the son is doing, I don't know. In my case, it's just me. I do everything. I do the writing. I do the, where there's writing, which is not always the case.
Right.
I do all the title cards myself. I don't use any tools. I mean, I have the title cards down to kind of a system now. So it's not that much work, but just keeping all the files organized is not trivial, right?
Sure.
I mean, I've got, every year I start a new directory, a new folder that says Ardwulf Lair 2023. And then I have a bunch of subfolders in that for like, video intros and outros, music. And then I'll move stuff over from the old directory as I use it, so that if something's like generally like a one-shot thing that I'll never need again, it gets left in an old archive somewhere on the third hard drive. And if it's something that I use year after year, I will, just bring it over and use it. And then I retain all the files on one of the extra hard drives just in case. When that happens, right? I mean, I pulled something out just the other day out of like the 2019 file archive. So, but I mean, even it's there's a lot that goes on in there behind the scenes that nobody really talks about, publicly, not because they're keeping it secret, but because they think probably it's boring to everybody. In fact, when I had like the show with Stuka Joe and the guy Grant Alexander for the Players Aid, and we all got together, and I think Mo might have been there, and we all talked about like the ins and outs of making videos. I got people complaining about that. About, well, I'm glad that we got to see your internal meeting That was exciting. I'm like, I missed the part where I came over to your house, knocked on the door, and pointed a gun in your face and told you had to watch this video, buddy. So,
and charged you for it. Right?
Yeah, that's true. And then sent you an invoice
right.
for the privilege of watching this video.
What's the thing? Do people not have any manners? Is that what's going on here, Gary?
The percentage of people who are actually that bad is really small.
Yeah.
But they stand out. And because of the nature of being those people, they are loudmouths, right?
Yeah.
Because they're those people. So I think I mentioned earlier that like the number of people I've actually had to block, other than like the actual Russian porn bots and stuff, which is a thing, is really pretty small. There's channels with, you know, hundreds of thousands of subscribers that have thousands of people in their block list, and I've got like 20 ever.
Right.
You know, 9, whatever it's been that I've had the YouTube channel. There's people I've hit banned from the blog too, but I didn't check that list since I have like 2 blog entries a year at this point.
Right.
It seems like it's not really my, I mean, I kind of maintain the space just to kind of park it there. And because there's probably the equivalent, I think I figured this out. It's like 3 War and Pieces of written material on that blog in terms of word count. So it's a lot. I don't want to throw it all away, but it's not a space I really use anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got one of those as well. Right. conflictsimulations.com. And, you know, I just haven't, and I write so much for other stuff now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a C3I column. Here's the last bag.
Look at that.
Of counters for
the whole thing done.
Finished. I appreciate
like
the moral support going through that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it helps when there's only 27 counters in the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but they're clipped very nicely.
Well, yeah, that's the great thing about the deluxe clipper is that the counters are unruinable.
Yeah.
There's literally nothing you can do to break those counters.
Now, the end of my finger is ruinable.
Yes.
I don't know if I'm pushing too hard. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think.
The end of your finger? What do you like pushing on the handle like this or what?
No, I operate in the handle with this hand. This hand, I'm kind of, you know, put the counter in here and then rotate it and push it down, push it into the corner every time.
So like this finger is sore?
Yes. Yes.
I don't know that I can explain that. Do you have, so you got these 2 holes in the plate. Do they have any burrs on them? Because both the ones that I've bought had burrs on those holes when I got them. Now, sometimes they'll come with a piece of tape over that. I take the tape off and just use the plate because you don't really get caught in here as long as you deburr that. And I just used, I don't know, 220 grit sandpaper to do that or something like that.
Right. 220, 221, whatever it takes. Exactly. I don't feel like there's any burrs there.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know. I'm pushing too hard and I'm creating the problem. So
I don't know how you could actually do that, to be honest.
What, you don't believe that I'm doing this? Am I lying to you here?
No, I pretty much believe you. I'm just not picturing it in my head how it's possible to injure yourself in that manner using the Oregon Laminations corner rounder.
Well, injure may be too much, right? but when I'm doing it, right, you push this in, then you click it, then I rotate it 90 degrees, and then I push again, and I'm pushing right with this finger.
Okay.
So I think it's repetitive stress, and I've done literally, Gary, hundreds of counters today.
So I've done, okay. I did hundreds of counters on Monday. So I use my thumb for that. I mean, I don't know if that makes a difference. If you got like some weird thing like this, I mean, my shoulder would start to hurt if I was doing that all the time. I have found that exerting too much pressure on the counter is a mistake. And that applies to both the deluxe and the non-deluxe models. I can guarantee if I pull one of these out, I'll get the two, and I put anything more than the lightest pressure on that counter, it will misclip.
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm doing is holding it there. I am exerting basically no pressure. Clip. This is the 3. Clip. And I can pretty much tell when it misclips before it misclips, right?
Yeah, I can feel the misclip on that one.
Yeah. Now, do you have the standard model as well?
Yeah, I do, but I never use it.
Okay. Yeah, so mine broke after about 6 months, and I'd probably clipped, I don't know, 8 games with it, something like that. Not anything super huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I called and complained to Oregon Laminations.
Shocking.
And they were cool about it. But they didn't offer to replace it either. So what ended up happening was, I'm like, hey man, I really like the results here, but instead of buying another new deluxe one, I'll take a standard one. And I've literally, that's the one in the drawer here that I've been using for the last, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. It's clipped hundreds of thousands of counters. And I'm talking about the 2mm one. I've by far used that one the most. And every twice a year, maybe I take it apart, clean it with WD-40, put it back together. And that's all the maintenance it requires. You could throw it under the car and drive over it a couple of times and it's indestructible. So not having to replace it was the big thing, because the big ones are like $60 now. These big ones are like $60 now.
Inflation, man.
Yeah. I mean, and I like this one too, but I put the dice in it. So there's, I think, a minimal chance of me snapping this one like I snapped the other one.
Interesting.
And I even labeled it. So
yeah, that's the other funny thing. I think I've mentioned. I think I emailed you this question. It's there's no indicator on the device.
There is not.
Although, look at this. I've got one of these.
That's 2mm, a radius 2.
So maybe mine is labeled.
Yes. Yeah. Now I didn't leave that on this. So you see the 2 little thin strips of tape
on the handle right
there.
Yes.
2mm.
So,
and then later on, I actually wrote it in Sharpie, and they covered the Sharpie with the Sharpie will wear off, especially since I'm lubricating it with WD-40. But I put clear nail polish over that, and that's held up okay.
So, yeah, I try not to put nail polish on my tools.
Yeah, I forget where I even got the clear nail polish. It may have been Miniatures enamel, to be honest. I'm not really even sure. Right. So I've got so much space here, I'm considering putting together a miniatures painting area.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, and I haven't painted a miniature in 15, 20 years. So,
boy, that's a time sink right there.
Oh yeah, no kidding. What I think I'll use the area for is like small little crafts, like making dice towers and stuff like that. But which I do, but I don't know. I've got a lot of, I had at least 3 boxes of miniature stuff that got moved, even though I haven't painted a miniature in 20 years. So about once every 3 years, I'll get interested enough to like go to the store and buy a couple of things of paint, and then I'll take them home and put them on the thing and line them up real neat, and then that's it.
Then you're done.
Yeah,
that's it.
I didn't have to buy any more miniatures because I got drawers of miniatures. I've got an entire Rohirrim army from the Lord of the Rings miniatures game that Games Workshop did. Beautiful models. I just moved it in the same box that it moved the last time we moved 9 years ago, and sat in the garage untouched for 9 years.
That's funny.
So
I've got a buddy that is great at painting him, and he loves to do it. And I'm happy to pay him to do it whenever I need something, whether it's for dressing up a game or it's a, mini or two. We have a version of Liberty or Death. That's a 4X map. So we blew a map up 4X, and I use minis instead of the wooden.
See, that's kind of cool.
It's very cool.
I've seen that done with the larger scale map of the Napoleonic Wars as well.
Yes, that's good. And there's a game, I can't remember what it is. I'm sure your crew will know, but there's a game that provides those pieces, those plastic pieces, and that's pretty good. I've also seen a guy that did, the Academy game 1775.
Yeah, that's
And
a pretty good game too.
he
I've
did,
played that.
yeah, that's a very, a very user friendly game, very easy game
Hmm.
to get into. But he used minis and painted them, and they're just beautiful.
Sure.
I'll send you a picture of our Liberty or Death game. We
Oh,
pull
that'd
it
be
out
cool.
at the conventions, but that's pretty good. Yeah, I enjoy that. I was listening to today on my walk. I was listening to Armchair Dragoon's most recent
Hmm.
edition. It's been out, I think, for a week or so. But and it's just great to hear guys talk about war games, right? I mean, that's just part of the attraction of providers at this in what we do. And anyway, Jim was talking about some guy that was arguing with him because he did the miniatures games on, what does he use, TTS?
Yes.
That he really wasn't playing miniatures. That in order to play miniatures, by definition, and right, and this is some of this pedantic garbage that we all, as wargamers, we get into. Simulation, war game, and this one was the best I've ever heard. Right, you're not a miniatures gamer because you're not painting the miniatures and doing the research and putting them on the table. You're just simulating the table and the painting.
So I think that's kind of absurd. However, it does reinforce my position that miniatures, aside from whatever games you may play from with the miniatures,
Mhm.
are themselves the miniatures hobby,
Yes.
right? The painting and the modeling and the research and the uniforms and the flags and whatever else you're doing,
Yeah.
that's a whole hobby by itself,
Yeah.
right? The rules, the choice of rules for a lot of those miniatures folks seem to be incidental. They'll just use,
Mhm.
we'll use these rules this week, why not? Or they'll experiment with different rules. And at one point it was basically the way it worked, would everybody would basically have their own rules, right? This
Mhm.
group would have their own rules and this group would have their own rules. And the standard, this is like early 70s now, maybe late 60s, the standard of expectation was that if you published rules, you would publish them in some kind of very small, very cheap pamphlet, and then that would be it. You weren't supplementing that with the miniatures line or any of that, or supplements or army
Right.
lists or whatever. And people were expected to do that on their own. So I think that's goofy, but I'm not surprised. And from a personal bandwidth standpoint, that's always been my reason for not doing miniatures. It's like it's a whole other hobby that I don't have time for another hobby. I got my hands full with this hobby. I mean,
Yeah.
realistically, my wife said this, and of course I knew this, but I don't know that I'd put it this way previously. This channel is a hobby,
Yeah.
right? So over and above the wargaming that I do, I mean, I should consider myself lucky that I actually do play stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's lots of folks for whom their YouTube or social media, whatever they're doing, is it, and they don't want anything to do with it outside of the hobby. I'm still having fun playing the games,
Yeah.
and I'm lucky to be able to play the games, and I kind of make that work despite an absolutely batshit schedule, right? Where 4 hours commute every week, and um playing at different parts of town, and
Right.
2 live streams a week, and then another live stream that's supposedly every 2 weeks, but it's more like monthly. And then all the scripted videos, or scripted or scheduled, I guess I'll say scheduled videos, because mostly they're not actually scripted, which means sometimes corrective surgery has to be performed in post. But that's just a thing that's going to happen. This might be one of
Managed,
those
not
too. I don't
scripted.
know.
Yeah.
I gotta comb through this and make sure I didn't say anything stupid.
You haven't. I've,
No.
I'll be the judge of that, and you've not.
Okay.
It's been
That's
great.
cool. That's cool.
Yeah, your wife and I would probably also agree that your counter clipping is a hobby, but not. I'm not judging. I'm just saying.
At one point, I think there would be something to that, but like I
Mhm.
said, I don't really, I don't never do it outside the counter clipping show, but 80+% of my actual counter clipping now happens on camera. So it's kind of like an adjunct to the other hobby, or if you like, and there's some truth to this too. The channel, as a wargaming thing, grew out of the counter clipping,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
even early on, some of my earliest videos were, here's how to tell counters apart, and here's how to repair counters that delaminated and stuff like that. So
Yeah. No,
there's
I
some
think
truth to the whole Wargaming Ardwulf's Lair enterprise arising from counterclipping.
it's brilliant. It really is, right? It's one of those little things that are common to so many of the people that love your content. And so the fact that you're sitting there clipping is just so natural and so comforting to everybody else that's watching. I think it's brilliant what you do with it. So
I appreciate that. I definitely should call Oregon Laminations and get a sponsorship, because I guarantee I've sold 100 clippers for them.
no doubt,
So
no doubt, no doubt, and do that, right? I mean, I was thinking, we ought to get that guy on here, right? So you should get that guy on, but the other one that we should get on is Gary Grigsby. Anybody have you interviewed Gary Grigsby yet?
yeah, he's been interviewed in print in the
It
last
doesn't
few
matter.
years.
Nobody will do it with the flair and the knowledge of the games as you will.
Oh, I don't know. Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind talking. I could come up with a good set of questions for Gary Grigsby, but I don't consider myself to be particularly knowledge on computer war games specifically. It just happens to be a couple of his that I do like. I do like War in the First War. I don't have the second one. The First War in the East, I think, is a very good game. I think it feels like a war game to me. Is it maximizing the potential of the computer? Maybe not, but it feels like a tabletop war game. And that, to me, that's important. It's why I don't like a lot of other computer war games, because they're either like super primitive in the interface, or they try to fancy it up with graphics and animations and stuff like that, and says such that, man, just let me push counters around. I like counters. I like NATO symbols on little cardboard rectangles. Just have little squares and let me move them around. Right. And I'd be happy.
I'll be all right.
I'd be very happy with that.
That's soothing. No, it's a very romantic thing, right? I mean, it's stuff we've been doing for so long at this point that we have very romantic appeal. You know who I interviewed recently for my podcast was Jay Little, and Jay Little designed X-Wing, the tabletop minis game, and was a very interesting guy. It was interesting, asking him questions about, you've got this rights contract, right? And so
talk about pressure, right?
Yeah, right. And not just pressure from, the owner of the rights, but also the pressure from so many fans that are just so intensely into the detail. But
fortunately, that seems to have done very well.
Yes. Yeah, no, he's done a great job, and not just as a game, but also as a tournament phenomena, right? I mean, that's where you really seem to knock the ball out of the park, when people are meeting every Wednesday to compete, right?
Yeah, and I wonder sometimes about the value of competitive play with or without a money prize, right? Because there, money prize at WBC, for example. It's I mean, there might be a plaque or something.
It's a plaque, yeah.
I wonder about that as a marketing tool, right? That maybe is not being capitalized on by Wargaming right now.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of activity and discussion seems to be driven by the competitive scene, which either is from where I'm sitting is either ASL, or which is super competitive, or it's at like events like WBC, right? And I mean, there's like Avalon Hill games that are 50 years old that are still getting played there, and
but don't you feel like it's dying at WBC?
I don't know.
I mean, I know they're playing those, but they're certainly the small minority, right? And and as you said, there's a vocal minority of people that play that competitively, certainly in war games. The rest of us.
Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. I mean, I know that I saw some statistics a couple years ago that definitively shows that wargaming at WBC has declined as a percentage of activity at WBC. But I felt like from the numbers I recall, and I could also be just completely full of shit.
That would be shocking,
right? Because that never happens. The percentage of wargaming as a net total, right? That like the still pretty much the same number of war games happening there. It's
Yeah.
just that the growth has been faster in non-war game areas, and that seems
Right.
plausible to me too. And certainly, I think that lines up anecdotally with what we see and experience in the hobby, right? We've had this explosive boom in board games in general over the last, say, 10, 15, 20 years. And I think some of that has spilled over to wargaming, but I don't know that wargaming has, like, increased in prominence or popularity by an order of magnitude or anything like that. It
Yeah.
just seems healthier now than it was at one time. But I hesitate to draw too many conclusions about just perceptions, right?
Yeah.
Because I have in fact known to be full of shit on occasions, and
Yeah.
my perception turned out to be wrong, right? That there
Yeah.
was
No.
nobody doing war games anymore, and that turned out to be nonsense. I just wasn't seeing it.
Yeah. No, I'm happy to share opinions without a basis in fact. So I know what you're talking about, but but when you think about it, right? I mean, there's probably different strata of whatever it is we call wargaming, because the guys that are playing Africa Core, or I
Mhm.
don't know, Russian Campaign, I don't whatever those most basic games are. Those are very different than the ones that are playing Sakagahara, right?
Oh yeah,
Right. And
certainly.
so,
I mean, man, the games are different.
well, but the number in Africa Core, like there aren't 16-year-olds that are saying, "Hey, this is
Oh no,
awesome. I'm going to
I wouldn't think
dedicate.
so.
I need to go back through those old generals and study
Mhm.
strategy." Right. So
There
that
was a
number
kid at
has
Compass
to,
Expo about 3 or 4 years ago who it was on that day that I talked to him. It was like his 17th birthday, and he was sitting down with an SPI copy of Panzergruppe Guderian and playing Panzergruppe Guderian. So I don't want to say it never happens, but
right.
certainly I mean, that's noteworthy when you see it.
It is, and that's a good one. I mean, that I was in L.A., and there were a bunch of people playing a tournament for oh, what was it? What's the right, left, center?
Commands and colors,
Yeah, but what's the World War II version of that?
but Memoir 44.
Thank you. And they were, there's a playing competitive tournament of Memoir 44, and I just,
Hmm.
I don't. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose, but you're going to win because you're better at it, or I mean,
Eh,
is it really a tournament?
so I think those are valid questions, but I'll just give you my brief personal experience with Memoir 44. I like the Commands and Colors system a lot. I enjoy Commands and Colors Napoleonics tremendously. I enjoy Ancients as well. I've got the Jacobite stuff. I like the system. I played Memoir 44 twice and had a memorably bad time both
Mm.
times.
Yeah,
However, here's the caveat: both times were at Origins, two separate Origins, and they were both D-Day scenarios. So
yeah,
they were both like the huge grand battle thing.
yeah,
And in both cases, the reason why it sucked is because we'd paid for a 6-hour event, and some of these conventions, including Origins back then, you paid basically by the hour, and it's not a ton of money, right? I can't even buy a sandwich with the money. We're they're supposed to have this epic 6-hour struggle on the beaches of Omaha, and it's over in 40 minutes, and it was super unsatisfying.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't know, it could be just the nature of the game, but I don't think so. I have
yeah.
never played Commands and Colors Napoleonics and had that experience, or seen it played having had that experience. It could be scenario design. I don't know. Maybe I was just unlucky. That's possible.
Possible. Yeah,
But
I've
I'm going to get like super bent out of shape about a game like that, about winning and losing. If I win, great. I'll be happy. If I
right,
lose, what am I going to do? Go put the car in the garage, seal
right.
all the doors tightly, and turn the engine on? I mean,
Is it
come
a
on. Let's
is it
be
a
real here.
sign? Yeah, is it a sign that my brain is over? I've owned 3 Memoir 44s. I've given them all 3 away to 12-year-olds in my family that I played with it, and I love it for that purpose. Right? I mean, it was fantastic.
It's a
Tournament?
nice intro game.
Yeah,
It's pretty. It's got fetching miniatures, right? So
yeah. No, you're
unlike those ugly little wooden blocks that everybody hates.
yeah, with no personality.
Yeah, exactly.
You've
It's
got
soulless
standing,
wooden blocks.
single-colored, soulful army people.
Yeah, just boring. Just boring. I'm dozing off just thinking about it, actually.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially that game that just has one on each side, where you just have like a red block and a blue block. and that's it.
That's it.
That's going to be very exciting.
What more do you need?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's all about thinking. You just think into the block, and the person who thinks harder will win.
Right.
So it's a test of mental effort.
Or you trim the corners of the block, and whoever does the best job.
Then you have to repaint them, though.
That's true.
So that's a thing that could happen.
It's expensive.
Yeah. The fancier Columbia games blocks that they've been using for the last few years they're not quite pre-rounded, but they're kind of a little rounder than normal blocks that are used by everybody else. They're very nice.
Yeah, no, they do a good job with the counters. I don't, that's an interesting, we don't have time for it, but that's an interesting study in and of itself as to why those games, they're popular with a fairly small group, but why they aren't more popular. And I think it's because people want to be able to see. I want to see what units you got out, man.
That's a really good point. Maybe the fog of war, which is of course part of the purpose of having the blocks in the first, of course, according to the Tom Douglas rule, where you're standing them up and there's info only on one side. Maybe that's true. If so, I think that's a shame. I think there's a lot of really good block games. Some with hidden info and some that are block games because they have blocks, but they're not really block games in the same sense. Right. But I mean, we've also seen, games with different shaped blocks, maybe with more pleasingly shaped blocks that have been very successful. So,
right.
I don't know. It's probably, there is sort of the blockhead thing that maybe I don't want to say I think it's too cliquish because I don't know anybody that talks like that. That's like a block wargamer, right? I don't know. It's a good question. I'd be curious to think more deeply about that than I'm capable of thinking here at 11:35 p.m. About why it is that maybe block war games aren't more popular than they are, because there's people that like them, but and rave about them, and I've as a not dedicated block guy have played some of them and have very high opinions of a number of them. Triumph of Tragedy is just a recent relatively popular example. I guess that's done pretty well, but right. That seems to be an exception. And I don't mean to be impolite in saying that perhaps there's a certain fantasy element in that game that people also like. So in that it's complete Wild West, right? Anything can happen.
It is. It's a sandbox.
That's the appeal of it, though. I got to play Conquest of Consequences, which I expected to be dull, and to my mild surprise, it's not dull at all. It's great. It's just as good as the other one.
That's good. The Volko raves about it, so I'm gonna have to play it.
I expected it to be like, but you're in the Pacific and nothing's happening, and no, it's not really like that. There's the same amount of diplomatic shuffling, and you got the whole thing in China going on that whole time. And you are, because it's a sandbox, whoever's playing gets to make the decisions, right? If the U.S. want to attack the Japanese in 1939, I can do that, right? Yeah. That was dumb, by the way, but I did that. So it didn't work out. It worked out very poorly. But it was like, wow, it was super engaging. I was just as engaged in it as I was in Triumph and Tragedy, which I've also played several times. So that's like the most prominent recent block game release that I can think of that seems to have done well. And who knows, maybe that'll lead to a little bit of a block renaissance. That'd be cool.
That'd be a win too.
So maybe I get Tom on. That'd be a great catch. I've actually interviewed Tom before for a print interview about 25 years ago. So that might be interesting. Tom might be receptive to that.
That would be interesting. His son, I think, has a little rougher edges. But
I've had very positive interactions with Grant. Let me put it that way.
I have not.
I have had. I've never met him in person, but I've corresponded with him via email and IMs, and I have nothing. All my interactions with him have been positive.
Good for you. Good for you, Gary, and I encourage you to interview him. So
yeah, maybe get Grant on too. I'm pretty sure I could get Grant on. Maybe I could provoke him into a fit of rage. That would be fun. The trick, however, is to evoke the rage without him hanging a call up. Right? Get it all on camera. Right. That's what you got to do.
Well, that's why you include Dan in the meeting.
Oh God, He'll be puzzled. I think he'll be puzzled by Dan.
He would be, yes.
I'm not quite sure how to deal with this guy.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure he's all there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
is he going to bust some wisdom on me later, or?
Yeah. Or is he just full of shit? I'm not sure.
Who knows?
He's a model of organization and structure. So, all right. So, I think we have gone on long enough. We are actually, we're an hour and 45 minutes right now.
Where did the time go?
So, talking is fun, right?
Yeah.
So, hopefully folks will enjoy whatever this turns into. We'll see. I'm going to edit it down to about a 7.5 minute video. We'll see. And we'll see how many views will be through the roof. It'll be great.
Just increase the speed dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
It's Gary, Harold Buchanan, and Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. That would be hilarious. Actually, I should experiment with that feature.
Yes,
see if I can get that to work, because it sounds like it'd be a riot if I could.
It would be hilarious.